I wanted to talk to Daniel in Texas, who has some curiosity around what is being called the Great Sex Recession. Daniel, what's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, so I wanted to know your thoughts about that. And also, I want to point out on two studies. Okay, so there's this study done by Lindbergh and Firestein. That was in 2020. And what Lindbergh and Firestein found is that there's a trend of young adults having less sex. As a matter of fact, they conclude that by the time 20-year-old males reach 20, 40% are still virgins, according to the study.
Sure. And that particular study aside, I will definitely say that there is sort of a narrative anyway in popular culture right now. I've seen a number of articles referencing this great sex recession that particularly exacerbated by COVID and possibly or probably by depressed wages for young folks, that there is a lot less sex being had by younger generations, or that people are having much less sex in their teens and 20s than they did maybe 20 years ago. I'm not entirely sure how to feel about that. I think there are a lot of ways to sort of explain it away as a symptom of other issues within our nation. But Daniel, I guess I'm curious what your interest was here, or maybe what your concerns are.
Yes. So according to a study, that was the recession started in 2015. So since 2015, people have been having less sex. And so I also want to point to another study called...
well, Daniel, if I may, can you tell me what your interest in all of this is? Regardless of what we do or don't know to be happening, what's your concern here, or maybe your question?
Well, my question, I wanted to know your thoughts because there's another study. It says here that having less sex could lead to like poor mental health. It says here that starting sex very late could in fact affect you, according to this other study published by.
Yeah, we'll certainly say that it is going to affect you, that having sex at a older age versus a younger age is going to have a potentially meaningful change in your life. But that's going to be so individual. And I definitely don't think that we could sit here and say, well, I suppose that if you're not having sex by 17, you should probably work on that. Or, if you've hit 25 and it hasn't, oh my God. I don't think that there is any reason to believe that sort of stance is going to be useful here. Certainly, attitudes around sex are constantly changing and evolving. And it is curious that we would learn that perhaps teenagers are likely having less sex than they used to. And then we, watch Euphoria on Sunday nights and we get all anxious about it. And I don't know that any of us could really be the arbiters of how our nation should feel about that issue. But I also don't think it's fair to say that it's a singular issue. There are so many contributing factors to all of this, and the trend lines, whatever they might be, are kind of unimportant to me in the face of like individuals and how they're living their lives. And to me, the thing to get most excited about here, or to maybe find some solace in, is the fact that for better or for worse, I think much, much, much for the better, there is a lot more access to information about sexuality for teenagers. Arden, Johnny, what would y'all maybe add to all this?
Go ahead, Arden, but
I was just going to say that I would like to hear more from Daniel about exactly what his angle is on this. And because I know I understand that maybe if there is like demonstrable harm that can be caused, that's a bad thing. I mean, I personally love sex. I know I haven't had less sex since 2015. But like, I don't even necessarily know if that's always a bad thing. If by 20, 40% of men or boys or I guess they're men by 20 haven't had sex, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, that could be a choice. uh, I guess then I don't really know what the solution would be, right? Like how are we supposed to if you're just here to advocate for empowering young people to like have a positive view of their sexuality and their bodies and relationships with each other, then I absolutely totally agree with that. But outside of that, I don't really know what like actionable steps could be taken with regard to these trends, which I think is maybe kind of what Christy was touching on with the trends themselves are like meaningless in this context, right? Like it is maybe concerning, but like why are we talking about it? Like, is there something we want to do? And if so, what?
Well, and I'm honestly wanting to
Well,
kind of dismiss a lot of the data that we have here because of the way that it's collected, because of all the complications in getting that data. And then, honestly, just the fact that we've been having this conversation for some 5 odd minutes and we've all been using the word sex. I think more or less with the assumption that we're talking about intercourse, potentially sex between two women or two men is getting lumped in there, kind of maybe, but there's not a lot of consideration for what sex even means. The reality is, all of these survey respondents saying that they have never had sex at 18, at 20, at whatever age, have almost certainly been masturbating for 5 or 10 years by the time they're taking this survey. And the fact that we're not considering that as part of the equation really says to me that we're not even necessarily asking the right questions. But Daniel, let you jump back in here.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I want to share my personal experience. So I was very religious, and I lost my virginity at age 26. And now I'm kind of young still, but I am having problems. So I don't know if losing my virginity late affected me. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Well, okay, let me ask the question then, because I think Christy was trying to get at it before. What do you think about the studies that you've read about folks not having sex quite as much as they used to, or whatever that means? What are your thoughts? Share them with us. Not your own experience, which is great, but what do you think? What does that tell you about the world we live in?
Right. So the studies are like at this point are still speculating. So they're still collecting data.
Mm-hmm. If it's true, what do you think?
Well, that's a very good question. So I honestly don't know what to make of them because, I mean, from my personal experience, I am having problems.
What are your problems?
And I am
tell me about the problems. Like, what's that?
Well, yes, I am having problems like sexually.
Yeah, I might jump in here and suggest, Daniel, without wanting to tell you about yourself. Certainly, as a stranger over the internet, I want to be mindful in trying to put any kind of label on anything that you're experiencing. But I don't necessarily know that it would be reasonable to think of the fact that you didn't have sex until 26 as the reason that you're currently having sexual issues, so much as there's probably a correlation. There's probably a connection between what you're experiencing now and the sexual shame and the religious trauma that led you to make that decision in the first place.
I heard medical issues, Daniel. Are you telling us? And if you don't have to share, but we appreciate when you do. Are you saying that you're having medical issues, challenges in having sex? Is that what you're saying? Or did I get you wrong?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. Okay. That is correct. So I have AD. I have like problems getting aroused.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And those concerns can very, very, very much, in fact, the vast majority of time, be attributed to cognitive concerns, to the way that you think about sex. And I have to imagine that if you were in a religion that put a bunch of shame and restrictors on you, such that you felt that you were not able to have sex until an older age, that you're likely still working through a lot of those same things. And I'm not here to say that anybody is made better or worse because they had sex at prom or after graduation or after college, or I mean, whatever track you're on is your own personal journey. And I don't think that it's necessarily fair to say that it's going to be positive or negative for anybody to have sex at any particular age. But if there's a reason why you perhaps hesitated, or if there was a lot of messaging that pressured you to have sex when you weren't ready, or that restricted you from having sex when you wanted to, then those same forces are going to continue to have some sway in your life until you're able to really process them and work through them in such a way that you find a health for you.
Daniel, and of course, I want to hear from Arden as well, but I got a bunch of questions here. All right. When you say you said ED, so you're having erectile dysfunction. No shame in that. Is that true? Okay. Did I hear that right?
Yes, I believe I am. Correct.
Okay. And are you able to, I'm not a baseball fan, but I'm going to say, how many times at bat would you say you get a chance to test out the efficacy of your genitalia?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that. I do want to mention that I was a Mormon. So, yeah, I was part of a very strict religion.
Yeah. Daniel, do you go on dates? Do you go on dates with people of whatever sex or gender you are attracted to?
Yes, I do.
You do. How many a month would you say?
I don't know, three times a month on average.
Okay. Do you have a steady partner, or are these new people that you're meeting, or describe the people that you are getting to these sexual situations with, if you would?
Yes, I actually have a steady partner, and then I go out with other people.
Okay. So you have a steady partner and you go out with other people for having sex with new people, or you go out with friends?
Yes, sex. I mean, any like romantic, experience.
Okay. So you have a steady partner and you were looking for sex out there in the wild. Is that true? Is that accurately described your dating situation?
Yes, that is correct.
And does this steady partner consent to you going out looking for sex in the wild? Does this partner know that you're going out looking for sex in the wild? Yes. And again, it's anonymous here, so you can answer however you want.
Okay, well, not really.
Not really. Okay. Well then, how do you feel about that?
Wow.
How do you feel about that situation?
I don't know. I just want to get it all out because, as I said, I was a Mormon when I was younger. So,
okay.
I mean,
it definitely sounds like there are some complications around anxiety, perhaps because the life that you're leading doesn't line up with your own values. And that's certainly something for you to wrestle with, not anything for me to label or to enforce upon you. But that is one of many things that can cause so-called ED. I'm not personally a fan of that term because I feel like it is a bit of a misnomer and perhaps pathologizes things in a way that we don't need to. But I do want to say that if you're not having the erections that you're expecting or hoping to, the overwhelming likelihood is that it is something to do with how comfortable you feel with the choices that you're making, with how anxious you might feel in the moment, or how distracted you might be because of sensations of guilt or a number of other things. And that guilt might be something like your religious beliefs that you have sort of intellectually moved past, but that still linger on.
Right.
Or it could be something grounded much more close to home, as Johnny's kind of suggesting here.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to get it on. And both with the partner that you are with steadily or your side pieces, you can pleasure the other people. And perhaps, again, I am not a sex therapist, nor am I an erotic counselor in any way. However, you don't need a penis to do stuff.
Yep, especially an erect penis. Like,
yes.
I haven't talked for a little bit, but I'm just kind of taking in a lot of this information because I think Johnny was doing a good job of sussing out exactly maybe where these issues are. And I will say, Daniel, that I've been around the block before, and I've been with people of many different body types and degrees of functionality. And I think Johnny really hit it on the head that you absolutely don't need it. It sounds to me, and maybe I'm wrong, feel free to correct me if that is the case, but it sounds like maybe you're like kind of giving yourself an expectation of like, this is what my sex life should be like, and this is what would be like maybe even normal perhaps, and that's not where I'm at. And maybe I think that sounds like that would be more of the issue, the source of some of these issues, because I can tell you that I've had the amazingness of the sex and the satisfaction that comes afterwards has very little to do with how well my partner's living up to some expectation as much as like how present they were in the moment with me and responding to my desires and me responding to their desires. I think those things are more prevalent. And I think the heavier of a burden of meeting those expectations you put on yourself, it's probably going to be harder and harder for you to rise to the occasion of those expectations.
Pun intended. Daniel, are you meeting with, do you have the ability to consult with a therapist?
Well, I do want to get a therapist.
All right.
Yes, I've been wanting to do that for quite a while now. I haven't had the chance, but yeah, when I get the chance, I would like to see a therapist.
I'll tell you, it took me some time, and it's been some time since I saw my counselor. But it took me years to get the gumption up to, I got to sit down. I got to look through some people. I've got to figure out what my insurance covers. It's like going to the dentist. Like, I don't want to do it. I know I don't want to do it. And then I did it. And I found it to be very beneficial. And it got me thinking about myself and my life and my interactions with people in a different way that brought new spectrums of color and light and sensations to my interactions. I was not thinking of the multitude of ways I could be living my life and interacting with people and seeing how my actions affected others and how others affected me. And so perhaps, although you already said you wanted to, perhaps looking forward to the new world that could be yours by consulting with the right therapist for you. And it might not be the first person you find. It may be 2-3 therapists in before you find the person that really has a style and you have an interaction that works in a meaningful way for you. So I would encourage you to do not delay, to seek out a therapist that works for you at your earliest practicable availability, and maybe call back with new thoughts that you have as a result of this therapy.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your advice.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate your call, and I hope that we've been able to help you wrap your mind around some of this. But I definitely do think that if you are struggling with not getting the erections that you want to be having, that a therapist is a great place to start. So good luck.
Well,
give us a call and update us, thanks for calling.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Daniel.